Hey Bodana, what time is it?
It's time for the ChessKid Youth Championships 2026.
Hello, welcome, and it is time, as Bodana says there, for time for the Chess Kids Youth Championships to begin. It's going to be Group A. The clocks are going to be ticking, things are going to get wild, and we have the best players, the best kids in town. I'm International Master Ivanka Hauska, and I am with the absolutely incredible FIDE Master or Fun Master, Mike Klein. Mike, how are you feeling about this one? It's going to be big.
It's going to be big, and it's the strongest ChessKid event of all time. I've been waiting 12 years for this. We have world number 38 and a whole cast of other talented kids. So, Yovi, we're going to have inferiority complex all day, but I'm super excited to watch these kids in action.
Yeah, inferiority complex is exactly the right word. I mean, these are seriously the best kids in town, the best players in town. And if you haven't heard of them now, you are soon about to. So let's check out the format. And as mentioned, it's going to be a double round robin. 12 players are going to be split into two groups of 6. And then we're going to be looking at 10 games of absolute fantastic chess at a fast time control, Mike. 3+1.
3+1, that's right. We're bringing the increment back because we want the chess to shine. And the key thing here is you're trying to finish in the top 2 of your group. If you finish in the top 2, you advance to tomorrow's knockouts. It is that single elimination bracket. 6 players are going to play right now. 6 players are going to play in a couple hours in a different pool. And then we get to tomorrow. The semifinals are very quick. Actually, each game matters a lot more than, say, the SEC because it's just best of 4 and the finals are best of 6. It is a sprint tomorrow, but today is a little bit more of a middle distance race.
Middle distance race indeed, as the players, they will be scrambling for those top 2 spots. And there's a lot of things to play for, of course. There's the prestige of becoming the ChessKid Youth Champion, but there's also a lot of money. First place nets $3,000, but there are prizes for absolutely everyone. Now, how important do you think these money incentives are for our youngsters, Mike?
Well, we never actually get the kids to explain what they're going to use the money for. In truth, Yovi, a lot of these kids are doing so on the world stage that they're already winning prize money this big, but they get to do it from their couch. And we do have this one rule. It's actually a rule from my youth that I've encouraged but not required the kids to use. If they win first place, they have to take their parents out to dinner, or at least, maybe subsidize some travel costs or something. That was my rule growing up, Yovi. What about you? Did you spend your money on your parents' little kickback when you won money as a kid?
No, I think that was my commission for them taking me to tournaments. But I agree with you. I think the players, they are pretty young. They're also pretty motivated. And I reckon that maybe they might go and celebrate with some ice cream afterwards. As we see Yaz there on our screen, getting ready to kick the action off. And Miaoyi, 16 years old, she is playing. She's our only female competitor in the Group A stage, but she is in for some tough competition because she's as we can see, lots of talents there on our screens.
By the way, Miaoyi wanted to play so much last year. She played from an airport lounge. So this year she looks a lot more comfortable in what looks to be her study. It is her final year of eligibility, so we hope that she does well. In fact, she pretty much only plays in this event on Chess.com. She has the fewest games on Chess.com. We've got one kid playing this afternoon who's got 50,000 games on Chess.com. Let's take a look at our pairings there in round 1. We've got Yagiz, world number 38, 2024 ChessKid Youth Champion, actually double champion. He won the under 13 and the under 16. He was a finalist last year, but he's going to play Sergei Sklokin. Board 2, we've got Henry Edward Tudor, English sounding name, representing Romania. He's got mom and dad on both sides of those countries. And then against Patrick Cieślak from Poland. And then we see Miaoyi against Sina, who's a move ahead of the competition. We're going to make that joke a couple times today. We're happy to have Sina play.
We are absolutely happy to have Sina in our competition. He's won the title Tuesday a few times. He's also locked horns against Magnus Carlsen himself. And I'm definitely excited to see whether he can make that move ahead. He has STEM competition in front of him, as he has Yaz Khan Edomush, and also many, many talents. 12-year-old Sergei Sklokin, who actually defeated Gukesh at the World Rapid and Blitz last year. So I can't wait to see how our youngest competitor, just 12 years old, Mike, gets on in this competition.
Sergey is only the second kid of all time to play in a section older than he was eligible. He actually could have played the under 1300. He chose to play the under 1600, and his rating was so high, he was actually eligible for both. He gained about 200 ELO points right as we were making invites to the tournament. So very timely over the board increase there by Sergey. So we're happy to have him. Yuj was the other player to play in the under 16 when he was also eligible for the under section. Remember, the first year we had this tournament, 2024, Yuj won both events. So pretty unbelievable stuff there. And there we see him very calmly at the board. He's already got that gamer's chair. I find that the kids these days, one of the ways they like to imitate the pros, and actually Yuj we can already call a pro, is to sit in that gamer's chair.
Yeah. And I think we can definitely call Yaz a pro. I mean, he even told me once that he doesn't actually go to school. Yeah, the school is kind of more of a side quest for the time being. He's kind of dedicating all of his intention to getting as good as he can in chess, and he has good reason. Like, he recently played in the Tata Steel Masters, did exceptionally well there, and he does play with the white pieces against Sklokin, just 12 years old. There was his opponent. Can't wait to see how Sklokin gets on in this one. He's already taken down Gukesh on an over-the-board game. We'll see how he gets on online.
Yeah, quite a battle to start out. And by the way, you did say Tata Steel. The winner of the Challengers section is going to play in the afternoon. The defending ChessKid Youth Champion, Andy Woodward, bearer of the highest bullet rating of all time on Chess.com. He is going to play the afternoon session at 2 p.m. Eastern. But of course, we're going to focus on this one. It's 10 games. The target score is usually around 6.5 or 7. 6.5 or 7, you can virtually punch your ticket. 5.5 or 6, you're in the gray area about finishing in the top two. So we're looking for that score of, like I said, 6.5 or 7 to get to Sunday's action. So big test, though, for Sergey to start out. As you said, there we see the overhead. Games are going to start at any moment. And for a lot of these kids, it's the first time on the big map. I mean, Henry Tudor, I know him. He's played in a couple smaller ChessKid events, but he's representing the resurgent Romanian chess community. Big stuff happening in Romania these days.
Absolutely. And with the Grand Chess Tour, that's how I actually first heard about him, because he was there as a guest. He's been coached by Ivan Sokolov himself, but I'm seeing that the moves are getting played on our screen. The action is kicking off. And again, not some nice things. We are seeing a London system from Yaz Khan there on the bottom left, and Lunia Miaoyi, that's a C3 Sicilian. That's something that she's played before. And Tudor, Henry Tudor, he is going for what is a Queen's Gambit Decline Exchange variation. So some classical games so far, but where is your attention being caught?
Well, let's take a look at Yuzha's game. It's interesting. He opened up with the London because you know who else opened up with round one London was Bodana, the finalist of the under 13 section. She played the London in her opening game 2 weeks ago, went on to win 9.5 out of 10. So maybe he's taking a page out of the younger Bodana's book. Anyway, his knight has come to b3. Now, I was told when was in my fledgling youth that knights never belong on b3 or b6, but this knight does possibly have a path to c5 one day. So it's not the normal situation of a knight being on b3, and it was probably the best way to guard b2 anyway. But what do you see going on, Yovi, in this game between Yuj and Sergey?
Well, this is, I think, a very modern take on the London system. You do put your knight on b3, primarily because, as you mentioned, you don't want to make any structural weaknesses when you're defending b2. And you can play it like a multi-dimensional game. You know, you expand on the queen side, a4. Now you've got the control of the b5 square. And then, you know, the center is pretty stable. So it's all about then just putting your pieces on the right spot. Sometimes you might even see h4 make an appearance on the right side of the board, with white just trying to gain as much space as possible.
Yeah, and it's also a good time to go ahead and give Mr. Aman Hambleton a shout out, because he just released his Chessable course on the London. So we'll bring our Chessable monkey into view right here. We're going to call him Aman until some other Chessable opening comes up. So we can do a deep dive later on, or you can do a deep dive by grabbing his course. But okay, so after c3, I'm still going to give you the question, is this knight coming to c5 one day? I mean, you've got to guard b2, or do you? Because the queen's going to look a little loose if she grabs that poison pawn.
Yeah, I think you can wait with jumping in with a knight to c5. I think just focus on the other pieces. I think the argument is really that the knight on b3 might be a little bit misplaced for the time being, but then so is the queen on b6. She's out of the action as well. So we're seeing some small improvements there on the king side, h3 being played. And again, the ball is being put back in black's court. There's kind of saying, well, you come up with a move, you come up with a plan as well, because there's no bishop on d7. It's not a great piece.
I'm going to give you a little question here. I'm going to go back a move here. Actually, I don't have to go back a move because now it's white's. Okay, the players are moving so quickly. But
Yeah.
my idea for white was to hop the knight into e5. And the knight is so annoying that if the black knight takes, we take back with the pawn. We force the knight to move. We get our queen to h5 very quickly. Now, white, I think it looks like he's dropped the bishop back. So you're just going to put the queen on d3 and do it in a little bit more controlled way. But once we see that, I think we're going to see this knight hop into e5, and the knight won't be able to be touched. Because if you capture the knight, the pawn will take. And because we've got this battery, it looks like very bad things will happen to black on that light square diagonal.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I love the way that Adomush was playing. I mean, I saw there in the chat that 2,700. I'm sure that's going to be the next target for this youngster. It just feels like anything is possible for him. He's even been name checked by Magnus as a massive talent to follow. But I was seeing knight to d2. Stepping away from this plan that I found so attractive. And you also mentioned there jumping in with a knight to e5, but I'm sure Yaz has got aggressive intentions. I'm sure he's going to back that up with ideas such as queen f3, and then just getting ready to ask the questions to the 12-year-old opponent of his, how is he going to defend the king side when the queen is offside on b6?
Well, let's very quickly take a look at what he could have done there. I think he brought his knight back to d2 to overprotect e4. So I'm going to go back in this game for just a moment, just very quickly, because I know the clocks are going to get low in just one moment. But instead, if queen to d3 happens, I think after knight to e5, if the knight takes and your pawn takes, and this knight tries to shut down the diagonal, there's a very, very juicy sacrifice of the rook on e4. And I'm not sure if black can actually survive. Let's give black a random move. I apologize, not the greatest move for black. But if the knight comes in and takes knight to e4, I'm really hoping that rook takes. Although now I'm looking at, I think rook takes. You can't play f3. And this is the kind of thing that I thought white should go for. Computer actually kind of agrees with my decision. But instead, let's go back to the live position. That kind of explains why his knight went back to d2, because I think he was trying to guard that e4 square. And now we are very quickly going to catch up to the live position. And this is the live game after bishop c6.
Yeah. And it's very much a case of what active plan will black have? How are they going to withstand the storm that is incoming? Look, the rook is going to e3, is getting ready to shift over. So I suspect a knight might come on to f8 just to kind of throw all the defenses towards the black king. And Sergey, you mustn't underestimate him. We mentioned many times, just 12 years old. Oh, hang on a second.
Well, he's trying to take advantage of the fact that bishop on c2. Well, the bishop c2 is in charge of the knight. So he's hoping that you can't trade everything on e4 because the knight's hanging. But you know what? What if you do it anyway, and then you take on h6? Okay, he takes on h6 first, but the point is, you can, oh my goodness, everything is falling apart. Black's king.
But wait, is this working?
Well,
the evaluation bar is telling us a different story. There was a bit of excitement there as it looked like everything was going for white. This is a great defense there from Sergey.
Yeah, bishop g5 shutting down the lines. And now can more white pieces join the attack? Because for the moment, the bishop and the knight are just sitting on the queen side, and the queen and rook are not enough to win. And the queen is running out of squares if she goes to g6. Okay.
And Yaz is just shocked. Yeah, I don't think he saw that one.
Sergey's got 2 seconds.
Suddenly the tables are turned.
Yeah, but 2 seconds to defend.
But in just 1 second.
Double attack on g2, and he's going for broke because, frankly, he's got 2 seconds, and he might as well create some complications. If you push the pawn, the bishop's going to sack, or he's just going to take on f2. What do we do? f3? Rook takes g2 insta. The king is now, look at the king on f1. Black hangs the queen, and then checkmate with a bishop and a rook. 2 bishops and a rook. Unbelievable checkmate there. What an upset, Yovi, to start the action.
Yeah, wow. That was quite the game. It looked like Yaz was going to play this a brilliancy, and then it just, with some fantastic defense, there from the 12-year-old Sklokin. I don't think he could quite believe the turnaround, whereas Yaz, well, he has to recover, still more games left in the pot. The emotions. Chess is brutal at the best of times, but this is just the beginning, guys. We'll see
That's tough
how
to watch. Let's
Yaz
go. We've got
and
a couple more games in
Sergey
action.
continue.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
so
go
I can
there.
report also that Patrick beat Henry, but we're looking at Sina versus Miaoyi. And just as we click on the game, we see that Sina wins by playing knight f5, and Miaoyi runs out of time in this position. So we had 3 decisive results, and I'm going to say 3 wins for Black. I think I have that right. Yes, we do. So pain on Yuz's face, a big upset to start out. Yuz almost didn't even have a loss 2 years ago, his first time in the event. But this is why we invited Sergey. The youngest player knocks out the highest FIDE rated player. What a first round, Yovi.
Yeah, what a first round. For the other results, I would say things kind of went to rating expectation, with Miaoyi falling to Sina Movahed and Patrick Chislak beating Henry Edward Tudor. But okay, we're going to be in for another round 2. The players can't rest. That's the great thing about chess, or maybe sometimes the worst thing about chess. You're not able to think about it, dwell on your losses. You just have to begin again. And that's exactly what's going on as we kick off. It's another London system from Adomush, as we're seeing knight h5, one of the most testing modern lines actually on the London system, just simply going after White's most aggressive piece. And we're also seeing e4, e5, some kind of Italian game from Chislak again. These are juniors, they play direct chess, and he's inviting Miaoyi to go g5 and enter that whole barrel of complications. And for Sklokin, this one is looks like a Sicilian, an open Sicilian.
Well, because we looked at Yuj and Sergey in round 1, let's take a look at 2 players we did not do a deep dive on. I'm going to suggest we take a look at Patrick Chislak's game against Miaoyi. And when we do that, we'll get to take a look at 2 new players. So I'm going to go to that game, and we've arrived. Okay, so the bishop is jumped to h3 right as we speak, and that is a very weird placement for the bishop. I guess my first question is, where's that black king going to go? Is he going to stay in the center, or what's going to happen with that king?
Yeah, what is going to happen with that king? I think he's going to live a life in the center. I don't think black should be even thinking about castling in either direction, and just rely on the fact that the pieces are pretty active. And it's not easy for white to actually break through, because if you capture on e5, then black corrects their pawn structure, takes on with the f-pawn. You can move the queen to e7, and there's not too many squares for the white knights to start anchoring themselves to.
Okay, so pretty committal decision here by playing the move pawn to d5, trying to break down the queen side. Very interesting, though, because if you break down the queen side, you're going to open up lines to your own king. Okay, so queen to b6 already makes a threat, because pawn takes pawn, and when the bishop moves, there's a checkmate on b2. So an immediate threat. Also, you could take on f2 and play some sort of endgame with the queens off the board. So double thoughts here with queen b6. Could be aggressive intent. Oh, wait, ignoring b takes a4, and you can see the computer does not hesitate, but c7 was the response. Oh, this is crazy. The bishop guards c8. Could you play rook b7 and leave the pawn on the board? I don't know.
Yeah, it's tempting. You need to calculate that one, because the bishop will then take on a4 with a check, and then there might be some b3 ideas in order to protect the king. I think if you're kind of feeling safe, probably queen takes c7 is good enough, and that's exactly what black does. And now the king probably is gonna, okay, I was gonna suggest king f8 and try to hide on g7, but nope, king to e7. That is a nice, brave move.
Yep, and we're getting close to just simple chess here. The rook is going to slide over to c8, and then all of the black pieces are going to come to bear in the attack. I wonder if he's thinking of bishop a3 type ideas in this position, maybe one day. The knight on g6 and the bishop on h3 are not playing a part of the attack. They might get rerouted. And of course, knight d5 is the immediate threat, so black goes ahead and just chops that knight off the board so that there's no fork on d5. The queen takes, and I'm expecting a slower buildup. You can get rid of the h6 pawn. Yeah, rook c8. We don't care about h6. We're going all in on that white king.
Right. In fact, the queen can't take a detour over to h6 because rook takes b2. Looks like it's going to arrive with a boom as well. So be very careful. And actually, I really like Liu Miaoyi's position. I think she has a nice ready-made attack on the B line, and now it's just a question of involving the bishop on h3. Maybe you can center it back to e6, or maybe no need. Maybe you just go like this, in with the queen to a2.
Yeah, she's just finding the weak point in the armor is all you're doing here. The queen is just going to sneak in slowly. And of course, don't sleep on Yovi's idea of rook takes b2. I think it's going to exist in a lot of different permutations as this game continues. But things don't look that great here for Patrick. Liu Miaoyi trying to get on the board after her opening round loss. And if so, we can say that that Black is back, because Black would be 4-0 if Liu Miaoyi is able to convert this position. So, by the way, she is 16, and this is the under 16 division, but the smartest thing Liu Miaoyi did was she turned 16 after January 1st, which made her eligible for our event today. That's why we're seeing her for this event one last time. She played last year as well. Okay, pawn to b3. Can the king find cover, though? Are we going to see a different rook sack, or maybe just a4?
Yeah, a4 looks like a very nice idea. Actually, there's not going to be a response to that, because after b4, rook takes b4, and the bishop is going to be hanging there on c2 if you recapture. So, and in fact, that's going to be checkmate. So you can't really do that. A4 looks like a killer blow, because otherwise, you can see the white king maybe go to d2, or maybe the knight can come to d2 and try to do some repair work that way. They do say that the knight is a king's best friend, but things looking really ropey here for white.
Okay, I want to take a look at this a4 move. I know you showed the tactic. Bishop e6 was played. Looks very reasonable as well. Let's go back for a second, though. If pawn to a4, pawn to b4 would be the natural idea to shut down files, but a different rook sack, this time on b4, not b2. And Yovi is the queen of rook sacks today, because after takes, we have a checkmate, as you can see on the board. Okay, let's go back to our live position. Instead, Liu Miaoyi decides instead to get the bishop back in the game. Pawn to c4, shutting down the bishop. I'm still sensing a4, though, as a key idea. And after a4, okay, bishop takes, a different sacrifice. And, oh, the queen comes over. Okay, do you see something here? Would you double rooks in the c-file, Yovi? What do we do?
You can double. You can also go rook b2. Isn't that also another possibility? And either way, you got to target the weak point, which is the bishop on c2. There's pins all over the place. This one looked just as good. So I'm liking this. I mean, I'm not really seeing a way for white to hold on, other than just stepping up with a rook to e2 in order to hold.
Rook d2 is a mate. The problem with rook e2 is if you give check and the king moves, the king blocks the rook's protection. And Black has played Liu Miaoyi's faster than my voice. She finds the way to, I thought the queen was going to take the rook to get rid of the rooks, but instead the king moves. Now you can always play rook c3 and win the queen anyway. This is a little bit mysterious. Why did she not play rook c3?
I think it's just time.
Okay.
Yes.
I think I also misplaced the fact that her own queen was hanging. But yes, she has 10 seconds left. She reroutes her knight. She's trying to get to d4. And now she might just win the endgame. That a pawn looks like a winner, but the knight gets to f5. Little counterplay.
Yeah, and look how calm both of those players are with not too much time on the clock. My heart is racing, and the players are managing to keep ever so cool. King goes to g2. There's also now the rook falls. This is it for white, and now
knight f5's a problem if your knight is pinned. Oh, but look at this.
Well, this is a better. So nice. You can't take because there's a discovered attack against the queen. So this is it. Everything is under control. And a nice game there from Liu Miaoyi.
She gets on the board. Each player has one win and one loss. And yes, she did not step into any landmines at the end of the game. She was able to win. We've got one game in progress. Let's very quickly go to Yagiz. It ended right as I spoke. Right as I spoke, the Yagiz versus Henry Tudor game ended. And we can see Yagiz has put white on the board. Okay, he's not going to spoil his double white. He's world number 38. He takes care of business against Henry, but Black is 5 out of 6. Sina Movahed is 2 out of 2. Personally, leading the standings there. Most players have won, and Henry is looking to get on the board.
Yeah, and Sina Movahed, as we mentioned, he has won Title Tuesday. He has regularly faced Magnus Carlsen online, so he is definitely one of the favorites, I would say, in this particular group. But he's got the white pieces against Cieslak, who's also a very experienced online player, and the games, they're kicking off. Maybe we can check in on that game, Mike, and see how things continue?
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm just going to get back to the games here. And we'll get moving and grooving again. 1 second while I get
Yeah,
back to
we
the
will.
games.
Yes, no,
Yes.
no. I, I was just going to say, I also just wanted to give a shout out to Liu Miaoyi and Yaz Khan Edomush. Edomush imploring the Karakan and going for one of my responses against the h4 variations, Tal variation going for a6. And she is actually fighting hard with bishop to d3. And I actually had a game in this, not that far off. I actually lost. So here you just want to be taking on e5, and then you just want to be playing the long game. And Henry Tudor, it's one of these Queen's Gambit declined exchange variations. And here is just simply about white arguing that the bishop on c8 is not the best of pieces. Maybe we're going to be seeing a knight jump into e5. And yeah, this happened.
Well, you know what? When I see a pawn on h5 this early in the game, and as you mentioned, it is a Caro, so you are the queen of the Caro, I think we do a deep dive on Liu Miaoyi against Yagiz, both winners of round two, both riding a little mini hot streak. So let's jump in there and let's see what getting this pawn on h5 does. Gain space, but it could be a weakness 25 moves down the road. Are you on the side of it's a weakness because you're a Caro-Kann lover, or different attitude?
It's always a weakness.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a Karakan lover. I'm always going to spin it in the best way possible. And interestingly enough, I almost had this type of position. And my opponent did something kind of like a knight to a4. And I kind of realized actually that the rook on a8, if white ever goes for this expedition with a knight a4, knight b6, in order to kind of pin down that rook on a8, you don't need to worry about it too much. In fact, the pawn on d4 is going to be the target at the best of times. And Black is simply going to be arguing that the minor pieces are actually have a purpose in targeting d4, so the knight can come to e7 and f5. But what we're seeing here is h6 being awarded a question mark, and because of the move that I mentioned, knight to a4. And knight to a4 with the idea of knight b6 is going to be a plan that white has definitely in mind when you play this type of pawn structure.
Yeah, the computer wanted Black to play b6 himself, and you only get one chance to play it because Liu could have shut it down by playing knight a4, but she chose not to, and neither player seems too concerned about this b6 move. Yagiz not playing it, Liu Miaoyi not shutting it down, but again, the computer is insistent. And finally, after running out of developing moves, I don't think that Yagiz wanted to castle because of potential sacrifices on h6. He decides, okay, I got to take up operations on the other side. So forced to play it, I guess. By the process of elimination, he was out of ideas and he finds the right move with pawn to b6. And Liu Miaoyi has to now deal with that pawn. By the way, we asked all the players before the event, what rule would you change in chess if you could? Now, the under 13 group, they showed a lot of creativity. They said maybe get rid of the en passant rule. Maybe the 50 move rule should be the 25 move rule, which, by the way, would make the bishop and knight checkmate crazy. These players are chess players. Almost none of these players offered up anything when we asked them this quite silly question. The only player that offered up anything creative was that Henry Tudor said, once per game, your pawn should be allowed to move backward. Okay, that's kind of crazy. We're not going to do that today. I think these players show more creativity at the board. But with all that being said, the knight hops to c5. That looks like a pretty strong knight. But why would the computer favor Black here, Yovi? You're the Caro player. Please explain.
Yeah, and it's primarily because of the weakness on d4, something that you kind of highlighted earlier on. And now that Black has broken out, you see when white goes on the whole full frontal attack of just taking as much space as possible, you have to break out, otherwise you're just going to get squashed. And this is primarily why you needed to go b6. You needed to break out either with e5, b6 has been done, and d4 is just a little bit soft. And where is white going to hide the king? You know, probably going to have to hide it on g2 at some point. I'm always worried about the king. There's one thing that my commentary career has taught me is always take care of that piece. And now we're going to even see direct threats of knight takes d4 as well, because the knight on c5 is a little bit sensitive. So king safety and also some tactical issues with c5 being
Yovi,
weak. And sure enough, the blue arrow appears.
Yeah, you're faster than the blue arrow. I was going to say, you spotted knight takes d4 even before the computer. Of course, the computer was hamstrung by making sure it was black's turn. But knight takes d4, I'm pretty sure that Yagiz is going to spot such a move. I mean, let's take a look. Yagiz's blitz rating on chess.com is, just 3149, no big deal. So I think this is not a 3149 tactic. I think we're going to see knight takes, and then that disconnects the queen's protection. Let's actually show that on the board because Yagiz is strangely taking some time here. We have knight takes. White must take back with the knight unless there's some kind of crazy knight sacrifice with the other knight, and then simply queen takes, and there we go. It's a pawn. It's also a really bad pin on this knight. This bishop is coming to life as we speak. Let's go back to the live game. We expect him to find it, and if we take a look, he does play it. Double exclaim from the computer, and now we are in the live position for knight takes e6. Okay, the idea is if you take the queen, there will be an in-between move with knight c7, but apparently that in-between move does not save the day because when the king moves, this is a live position, the rook moves, and after all of that, the knight is trapped. Who saw this coming? And we are in our live position with this helpless knight waiting to get captured.
Yes, and you did see Yaz just nodding the head there as he spotted the consequences of that particular tactic. Yeah, the knight is just simply trapped, and then they're going to be seeing a trade where black will have two pieces and white just has the rook. And the key is that the two pieces actually now will have a target. The pawn on b4 is weak. The pawn on e3 is also weak. And Liu Miaoyi, she'll have to fight really hard if she wants to survive this one. And Liu Miaoyi, you mentioned earlier that we had asked players some questions. Well, one thing that impressed me about her is that her favorite player is Wang Yue. So I did wonder, maybe Wang Yue is actually helping her. Maybe he's a coach of some sort.
Could be. We'll get our reporter on the ground in China to investigate that. But look at what he's doing. He's blocking all rook invasions. He's even blocking this pawn to come to b5 because he wants to win both of those pawns and have an outside pass pawn. So he is playing a perfect endgame here. Look at this. Every single square on the c file is being attacked. I can't even highlight them fast enough. And this is the key. You don't want to let that rook get any open lines or any invasions. So I really love his conversion technique. He's only got 2 seconds left, but he can also make moves really quickly. Now, I would love to see a bishop and knight mate. It's not going to happen, though. There's too many pawns on the board. Okay, the rook did get an invasion, but all the pawns are falling down, and the rook hangs.
Oh,
and that means
and the rook hangs.
Yeah, Yagiz wins.
Yes. We've had 3 rounds of chess, Mike, and we haven't seen a single draw. And the results here, look at them. We saw Sina Movahed. He kept his 100% perfect score with another win, this time against Patrick. And Henry Edward Tudor, he got off onto the scoreboard with a win against 12-year-old Sergei Sklokin.
That's right. He's not just a move ahead. He's a point ahead. Yagiz rebounds from that opening round shock loss against the youngest kid to win his next 2 games. No draws, as you've seen. And in the early battle for advancement to tomorrow, it is Sina and Yagiz, but we've only played 30% of our games. A lot of action remaining. Henry, Patrick, Lou, Sergey are all on the board and all nipping at the heels of the leaders.
Yes. And well, we have seen 3 games being played, and we are going to go on a break. And well, this is a perfect tournament where we have friends and family all watching and cheering for our players. But we also have something very special for you because we are introducing the friends and family plan for Chess.com. With your bundled purchase, unlock 6 diamond memberships for up to 70% off the standard price. That means you can share all the perks like unlimited game review and puzzles with everyone you care about. Prices vary depending on your country, so visit go.chess.com/family or use !family in chat for more information. And with that, we are going to go on our very first break, and when we return, we'll bring you more of the action.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying my best to practice a little bit. I mean, it seems like lots of other players are practicing a lot as well. And I don't know, it seems like a really strong field this year. Lots of improving strong blitz players, so yeah, it'll be fun. I don't have any expectations in general, but I'll just try to have fun and play good chess. I guess last year, I probably just did lots of simple tactics. Probably played a couple blitz and bullet games before, just warm up my brain, see some patterns and stuff. I didn't do anything special, but I guess I was just kind of, maybe I like looked at like a bit of like, well, like because I've played quite a few matches against some of them, so I guess I have a bit of a general feel for how they play. So I guess I just kind of thought a little bit about how I want to try to steal the game a little bit, but in general, nothing special. Regarding Faustino and Oldogmas, I guess in general, they're both very great calculators. Their calculation is probably very, very accurate and fast. So I guess that's probably one of their biggest strengths, and they also have deep opening knowledge. So I guess I don't really have any advantages over them, I think. I just have to try to get a game where I can play more comfortable. But in general, they're both very, very solid and tactical players. I guess looking at the field, probably, I guess I didn't look too closely at it, but I did notice some standout names like Sina, Movahed, and Ryo-Chen. I feel like their ratings are both 3150 to 3200 plus rating range, as well as like this Sergei Skoklin or something. He's also like 3100 plus consistently. So I think in general, basically the whole entire field is like very, very strong this year. So anything can happen. So yeah, I'm excited to see how they can play and how I can play.
But this exact position I'm like sure I've had as a kid. So like one of the early kind of serious ones that I learned, and this was kind of topical at the time, which started in the Italian and then here and then knight g5, which attacks f7, which is like, if you're kind of new to chess, then you probably immediately think like, why can't I just attack that pawn and take it, and then I'll attack the queen and the rook and so on. The only way for black to kind of avoid that is to play d5, which is the best move. And then white takes a pawn, and the big question is always like, why can't black take back? Which you can, of course. It's not, you don't lose immediately or anything. But the usual point of this, which is called the fried liver, is that now white sacrifices a knight, black takes, otherwise black's just losing everything. And then we give a check here, which not only gives a check, but also attacks a knight. And most people who are kind of new to chess, they're already totally unsure of what to do with black here, because they move their king back and then you take here and you're up a pawn for nothing. Or even worse for them, sometimes they go here and then not only are you up a pawn, but you're checkmating him. And the knight can't go anywhere because of the pin. So the only possible good move, which is not even so bad, is king to e6, and then you're up a piece, but you have this like serious pin, which lasts a really long time. And this is kind of like an opening trap called the fried liver. It, I think, ends up being not the worst opening trap to fall into with black, because you can kind of hang on to your knight and hope for the best with your king on e6. But this was like one of the really topical openings as a kid for me.
And we are back, and on our screens it is Yaz Adomush, just 14 years old. And if you think he is one of the front runners, well, he is. Take a look at these stats. You know, just a casual 26-69 in classical, 31-49 in a blitz. He's just 14 years old, Mike. I mean, can you believe it? These kids are good.
Yeah, he played the finals last year, and he has raised himself 119 spots in the classical FIDE ratings since last year. But you know what? He's got the glasses on. Remember, he lost round 1 with glasses on. Then I think he took them off for rounds 2 and 3, went on a winning streak. Yagiz, you got your glasses back on. I'm not sure they're helping your play. Actually, it was just Sergei Sklokin's ridiculous comeback with 2 seconds on the clock, mating with a bishop and a rook. But yeah, we're so happy to have him play. He won 2 years ago. He was a finalist last year, and he's looking to get back to the finals. There we see the board. It's time to engage the audience. One of those 6 players you see on the screen, I'm going to say is the most interesting person in the field. One of those 6 players has said that their favorite hobby is cooking. They can do 20 pull-ups, and their favorite player is probably unsurprisingly Aronian, because Aronian is a man who likes classical music and all kinds of, I'm not going to say obscure things, but he's a man of many cultures. So which player am I talking about? Which player likes cooking, can do 20 pull-ups, and has Aronian as a favorite player? You think about that. We'll get to the games. You'll be round 4 underway.
Yeah, round 4 underway, and I'm just thinking about your question. I already have my suspicion who it might be. I'll get back to you and see, check with our audience, so maybe we can compare notes. But as you mentioned, the games are in flow, and we are seeing Patrick. He's got white against Edomush, and we're seeing an open Sicilian, and we're going to see we're going to be in for a treat there, because we're seeing queen side castling there, and Edomush, he's going to have questions to answer. Where is he going to put his king? How is he going to attack the white king? That's going to be there. And Liu Miaoyi, she is going for a very trademark kind of thing. She goes for that complicated style where she gets her space advantage. And Sklokin, I can see that he's already played the Caro-Kann. From that structure, he has to handle where is he going to put the king, and will he have enough counter pressure against d4 as compensation. And for Sina, Movahed, who's gotten off to an early lead with 3 points out of 3, he's got white, and it looks like he's already got on the front foot against Henry Tudor. Shall we check in on the tournament leader, Mike?
That was my vote as well. I'm glad that you agree. Sina Movahed, Henry Tudor, the player with 3 out of 3, double queenside castles. We don't see that often. And after a Sicilian, we have pawn takes d5, and the question is how to recapture. Do you get the IQP? And is white winning a pawn? It looks like a pretty dangerous pawn, though, for white to try to win. So instead, we had bishop to c5. I do have a question, though. What if black had just taken on d5? Let's take a look at that. Let's go back for one move and see if black had simply captured the pawn. Let's say with the pawn. Is white able to take everything? It feels like something bad's going to happen on the D file. The computer's not saying that white is losing, but in the classic words of Danny Wrench, feels bad, man, but does it feel bad? Do you see a tactic here, Yovi, on the D file?
No, I don't see a tactic as of yet on the D line, but I do see that black has got the bishop pair, and maybe you were going to see bishop c5 and some uncomfortable pressure. So I can understand why Sina thought this might get a little bit wild. Oh, be careful there, Mike. Bishop e3.
Yeah, bishop e3 is a good spot. Okay, bishop e3 wins the queen. So you've got to play like c3. See, I set her up. I set her up with these blunders. Okay, and after c3, there's still some problems. So yeah, the bishops and the d file problems probably compensate for the pawn, if I had to guess. So let's go back to the live position. We had bishop c5 first. We might see something very close to a transposition. And in fact, no, the pawn took on e6. This is the live position after bishop c5. Let's just see that real quick. Bishop c5 happened, and then d takes c6, and then f takes, and then rook on h to e1. This is, in fact, our live position. Does black have compensation for the pawn? That's the big question.
That is going to be the question. And also, can white keep in control of this type of position? Because, with the clocks ticking down, it's a fast time control. Sometimes it doesn't matter what the pure objective assessment that the computer is giving us of the white being slightly better or much better. It's more about how easy it is to play. And I can see here that black has got some natural moves at their disposal. The king is going to tuck itself on b8. Oh, look at that. I predicted the future, guys. And then the bishop is going to get out of the way, and there's going to be pressure, in the immortal words of the Queen's song, against the d pawn.
And just to get back to our trivia question, we asked who likes cooking, who can do 20 pull-ups. Somebody put Ben Feingold, not playing today, but Ben not eligible. His 16th birthday came last year. What can I say? The answer, just to circle back, because sometimes I say a trivia question and forget, it's a weakness of mine, is Sergei Sklokin. So if the tiebreak comes down to who can do more pull-ups, Sergei is a huge favorite. Okay, being a 12-year-old, probably he's a little bit smaller. I could do more pull-ups when I was 12, but we're not doing calisthenics. We're doing mental calisthenics here. The king has hit himself on b8. We had queen e3. How often do you see the queen getting out of one line but walking into this line? If my student played this move, he or she would have a talking to. Okay, but queen to e3, what an amazing idea.
Right, it is an amazing idea, actually, and I completely agree. It's modern day chess. In the past, I think if a coach had seen me play that, they would have been like, "What are you doing? You don't want to pin yourself." But here, it completely works. The evaluation bar just simply saying that white is so much better. It's concrete game these days, and I suspected, by the way, that the answer to your trivia question was Sergei because he's half Armenian, and I thought, favorite player. Levon Aronian makes a whole lot of sense.
There you go. There you go. So a little Armenian love there. The pawn came to h3. I got to be honest with you. If you're looking for an explanation for queen e3, you came to the right place and the wrong day. I don't have an explanation for you. I mean, I get that the d file is a problem, but it looks like the dark square diagonal is an even bigger problem. It's not like the knight can get out of danger. This knight can't exactly get to a4 that easily with the bishop hanging out. Yeah, remains to be seen. Maybe the queen's going to sneak up to e5, and that's going to be the clever way of getting out of the pin. Maybe.
Yeah, but Henry's playing some really clever moves because you could see that white's next move was going to be c3 and just solidify that knight onto d4. And Henry's just saying, hang on, let me just take control of the queenside squares on b1 and c2. And now he's just going to overprotect. And Henry, he works with Ivan Sokolov. So here I could kind of see the hallmarks of Sokolov's play.
Yeah, bishop c2 is a nice idea. This is going to be a little bit of a deep middle game dive, but when your opponent has the bishop pair, if you can trade off one set of bishops, that's generally an advantage. It's something advantageous that you want to do. And that's exactly what white has done. White has also solved all of the pin problems. So Sina no longer in any pins. e6 is a backward pawn. There's still some pressure, though. There's still some knight takes c3 ideas. So the king hides on a1 to unpin the b2 pawn. A knight blocks everything on d4, though. And Sina is in control. And Henry only has 2 seconds left to figure out how to make a little bit of counterplay here.
Yeah. And I love the way that Sina had just been handling this, blocking the knight, blocking the bishop with the knight on d4. And okay, well, hang on a second. Things are turning around.
Yeah, Black wins the exchange after some huge complications, but is 2 seconds enough to convert? Now, Black, I think, would love to trade queens here and go into the two rooks versus rook and knight endgame, but checkmate is also a possibility. We saw Sergei checkmate with 2 seconds left. We're going to see rook b5 happen any moment. So now the queens have to come off just to survive for white, but Black can make a bunch of moves in a row once the queens leave the board.
Yeah. And if Sina loses, it means that everybody has lost a game. So Sina moving so quickly. But for Henry, it should be about holding the nerve and just advancing the kingside pawns.
Yeah, and Black has to be concerned. So if the knight gets to b6, there's all kinds of hook mates. Now the knight the knight's going to head for b6 somehow. That's going to be the big plan. How do we get to b6? Oh, the knight is a far way away. Knights traditionally take forever to get 2 squares away diagonal. Careful, knight c4, knight b6 coming, or knight c8.
It's coming now.
Oh,
the skeleton is there. Yes, but okay, the king will run out to c7.
Yeah, this is why I kind of like the knight to go through c4, because you didn't block the eighth rank, and maybe that's helping the black king come out. But okay, there's some counterplay. Black is still winning. About 3 seconds left for each player, and we actually had resignation. Why would you resign when your opponent has 3 seconds? That's a lot of trust. But in any case, Henry wins. Sina no longer on a perfect score. Henry up to 50%.
Hang on a second. Look at this. I'm just mentioning that Black has won all of the games. Wins for Sergei against Lu Miaoyi. Henry, as we saw, defeating the leader, Sina Movahed, and Yaz winning the black pieces. Does that mean that White has only won one game?
No, I think
so far.
in round one, black won three, then black won two, then black won one, then black won three. I count
Ah, okay,
9
yes.
wins for black, but still, black is on 75% as we move in to round number 5. And let's take a look here. How is white going to make a comeback? Well, that remains to be seen. Take us through the opening action here, Yovi.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And after that last round, where quite frankly, my heart started racing when the clocks ticked down, we had something a little bit calmer. Like we see for Slokin, he's gone for an Italian, advancing as far as possible with the A pawn in order to grab that space. It's going to be all about maneuvering the pieces and getting an eventual D4 on the board. And yeah, Edomush and Movahed, I mean, we have to dive into that one. It's the two tournament leaders facing off against each other. It is also an open Sicilian, and Henry Tudor, he had a fantastic game, and that one is still kind of settling in. Is this one, the bishop pair against the knight pair? And whoever
Yeah.
wins this one is going to take the lead.
Yeah, this is the battle of the two GMs, by the way. This is the one we've been waiting for. We saved it to round 5. Don't worry, you're going to see it again in round 10. That's how a double round robin works. Now, we're so early in the game. Let's go back to the beginning and see how they got here, because the action starts so quickly. We often don't have a chance. And we have ourselves, this is actually very similar to that Kasparov versus the world match back in 1999. I think, Yovi, you were 2 years old. So we'll talk about what happened in that match later. But anyway, not exactly the same opening. And white gives up the bishops to get a ton of space and to fracture all of black's pawns. And now black has to sort of huddle up here and hope to gain some space later on. And now we are in our live position after knight on c to e2. Is there any general rule, Yovi, you can give our audience when it's 2 knights versus 2 bishops? Is there anything at all in your training that you can enlighten our audience about?
Well, generally, they do say that you try to keep the position closed when you're fighting with 2 knights. And in this type of position, what you're going to be doing is you're going to try to find posts for your knights and you've got to anchor them. And here, I mean, this is kind of concrete stuff. Here, it's all about king safety for black, and it's all about just for white, that is just simply to keep those 2 bishops that are just such powerful pieces in open positions, keep them to their defensive roles. So for instance, this bishop on e7 must be defending f6. And you can see that's exactly what Yaz is doing. So the knight is coming to f4. If the bishop moves away from the e7 diagonal, then knight to h5 is going to come. And in fact, knight to h5 makes an appearance as we speak. And the knight on d4 is going to be trying to take care of this bishop on d7. So this one's very, very concrete. In general, 2 knights don't really work very well against 2 bishops. So you got to kind of rely on the pawn structure to do some of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, I do see a lot of targets, though, for white. So if you gave me the opportunity to pick a color, I'd probably pick white. By the way, these are not just the 2 grandmasters in the field. They're also the 2 players with the highest Chess.com blitz ratings. In fact, Sina is slightly ahead of Yagiz, but, just sort of by a small, minute amount, 3165 to 3149. Interestingly, the 2 overall highest players in the field are both going to play in our afternoon event. Faustino and Andy are both above 3,200 in blitz, but these are the top 2. I mean, we're not sneezing at 3,160. Okay, that's like my rating on my main account plus my rating on my alt account. And then I just barely get to 3,200. So, all right, anyway, back to our chess game here. A lot of weaknesses, but the king gets out of dodge by castling queenside. And for the second straight round, we have a double queenside castle position to focus on.
Yes, and I was going to say 3,100 is like, I'm not worthy standards. I mean, it's so good. It's so good. And it just sounds to me like we're going to see stars of the future here, like potential world champions. I mean, such a great score and it's great talent as well. As someone who struggles with mouse speed, I'm just in awe of also how quickly they play. I just want to add that one. And here, as you mentioned, there are a lot of targets for white to start attacking, namely the pawn on f6. The king is also weak as well, but black is active, and now the rook is perhaps threatening to swing over to g5 to do maybe even go to c5 in order to mobilize. The king is probably pretty safe on b8 as well. Wow, why is this so bad? Queen to e2 given a double question mark.
Yeah, I don't know if the pawn could have been taken on g2. It's not like knight to g3 traps the rook because the rook could then just take on h2. But this is a bit of a cat and mouse game because white is not making it clear which of the weak pawns he's going to double team. And black is also not pushing any of the center pawns to free the bishops. So nobody's making any what you might think of as irreversible decisions, no committal decisions. But now it's the e pawn. This rook was first targeting the g pawn, then swung over to c5. And now all the pawns are on the fourth rank. This armada is coming, but the pawns are just starting to fall. Very strange decision to just give a center pawn like that. And now you could play d5 to solidify the rook if you wanted to. But the a4
Yeah,
pawn
the A
is
pawn is hanging.
yeah, in case the queen goes
And
back.
okay, now how to oh, wow, hang on a second. The rook is trapped. It's in the middle of the board, but it ain't got any squares, Mike.
Yes, but what if you push a pawn and if the rook is taken, you take back with the pawn and the knight is hanging? So just for example, let's try the f pawn and let's just say the knight takes and the pawn takes. Now when the queen moves, the knight is hanging. So there's some sort of defense related to that idea. Let's go back to the live game and see exactly how Sina handles this particular situation.
Well, I think he's gone for your idea in some way or other.
Yeah, if you push the d pawn, notice when the rook is captured and the pawn captured, the bishop is going to be hanging at the end of a lot of variations. That's why the f pawn made a little bit more sense to me to be the pawn that guards the rook, but an incredibly double-edged position from our all grandmaster matchup here in round 5, pivotal for the standings.
Absolutely, and a very stressful position indeed for our players. As we see there, Sina on our screens, he's just trying to work out exactly what he should be playing. And I think we've seen a few more moves. Maybe we can just quickly catch up with what's happened. F5, the move that you suggested, not apparently being the best move, but a very natural one.
Computer doesn't like it. I didn't look at this pawn takes because I thought that the trade of pawns would not actually lead to anything. But rook to d5, avoiding that blunder of knight takes rook that I showed. The rook comes up, guards everything, swings over to an attack. Nobody cares about material. And now queen b6 is coming. The queen goes to a6 to defend. Rook check. Uh-oh, the king's running out of squares, so the queen has to take. Let's see. If the king had moved back, what would we have seen then, Yovi? Just maybe rook takes bishop or something?
Yeah, rook takes bishop. At least that's going to be a simple way to get the advantage.
All right, and here we have this position. It should be noted, let's get to the live position quickly because so many moves have been made here and I'm falling very far behind. But the last time a rook and two bishops faced off against Yuzha's king did not survive. But this is not round 1. This is deep into the game and the players are playing super quickly. In fact, I'm just going to go to the live position because I frankly cannot keep up. And now, even if you sat queen for rook, the two pawns are so far apart, that could be winning, but I don't think you're in any hurry to get to any kind of position like that.
No, I think the best chance that black has is to actually sacrifice itself for the h pawn. And if you keep the a pawn, it's not going to be that easy to win this one because the white king isn't going to be able to easily get itself into... Hang on a second, I got my things confused. It's if you have a pawn and rook defending, not a white queen and white pawn.
Yeah, I know what you meant. If black has the a pawn with the rook, certain fortresses are possible that there's no way we have time to break down. But the good news for white is that even after the pawn is lost, it's winning. But now we're okay. Queen c8 mate. I thought we were going to have to show some technique, but checkmate is one technique, and Yuj beats his main rival. And Yuj gets to 4. I think that means 2 losses in a row for Sina after that incredibly strong start. And here we see black has won twice again. Black is on a terror. 11 out of 15 for black. I'll let you guys work out the percentages on that. I think it's above 70%. Sina is still sitting in second. And look at the log jam for third. It is really anybody's knockout because you got to finish in the top 2. And everybody is still very much alive.
Absolutely. Everyone's still very much in the game. And Caro-Kann seems to be the weapon of choice for Yaz Khan as he plays black against Sklokin. Sklokin, also, we've seen him employ the Caro-Kann as well. Movahed with whites has gone for e4, e5, like a exchange Lopez with a knight to go into d2, and we have fun and games in Cheeselike against Tudor, as we're seeing an h4 against a Nidal, followed by f4. White's plan is simply to challenge the center with his f4, and bishop takes f4, queen to d2, and castle queenside.
Well, after that absolutely electric round one, where our youngest player beat our highest rated player with 2 seconds left with a fantastic checkmate, I think we need to jump to see if Yuj can get a little bit of retribution against the young 12-year-old phenom, Sergei Sklokin. We're not doing push-ups, lucky for Yuj, although maybe he's good at pull-ups too. But let's do a jump into that game to see if Yuj can even the score. And by the way, after that opening round loss, I have Yuj on 4 out of 5. So he has reasserted his dominance. Remember 2024? He won both events. I think he had like 30 wins and 2 losses or something absurd that year. By the way, he does not own the record for highest opening day at the ChessKid Youth Championship. That was set 2 weeks ago. Bodena had 9.5 out of 10. And guess what? Nobody's going to break that record today because everybody has 1 loss. So Bodena is still in the record books for 1 more year. Bishop to b5. And we had pawn takes c5. And here's our live position. I gotta hand it to you here, or ask you here, Yovi. I almost never take that pawn because my center collapses. This is like a very strange decision by Sergei.
Yes, and that's a general rule that I would actually advise white players be very cautious about taking on c5 because the e5 pawn is worth so much more. And you can see now that black is the one with all the potential to expand in the center. You know, you can imagine castles, e5, f5, and on we go with the center. So I gotta say, it's a mysterious decision. I think white is planning for going for some b4, a4 expansion on the queen side, but it's not without its risk.
Yeah, and even if you throw your pawns down the board, you're not aiming at a whole lot on the queen side, whereas black's expansion in the center will start to take over the board. So either all of my classical training is no longer applicable in chess, or Sergei just knows more than me, because d takes c5, something you almost never play in these sort of advanced French type setups. Because yeah, the e-pawn was captured right away. Black didn't even have to work for it. So interesting decision. We'll call it interesting. But you know, Sergei plays very well by beating the number 1 player. We already know that. Now, which way is he going to take back? It's not a given to me that he's going to take with the c-pawn. But c-pawn would be the more natural way. What do you think? He took with the a-pawn. Okay, keeping the pawns together in this way.
I was a little bit concerned that after c takes b4, that maybe a knight can jump into d4, and white is really banking on the presence of the bishop pair in order to get that counterplay for black having such a perfect pawn structure. And we're seeing knight to f5, and that's why white didn't want to capture with a c-pawn. But the question here for white is, you know, how to improve, and knight goes to b3. You know, I got to say one thing about white's position. Even though d takes c5 happened, white is still pretty solid. You just have to kind of make some kind of repairing moves like bishop to b2, or maybe make some trades with rook e2 in order to exchange off black's active pieces, and the bishops will be able to make a nuisance because black can't advance their pawns without making some weakness.
I was wondering if at some point black's going to play the move pawn to d4, double attacking c3. And if the pawn takes, then knights start capturing on d4. Now, white goes ahead and gets rid of that possibility by capturing one of the knights. Now, if you're black, I don't think you want to play this at all because you're weakening c6. And also, c3 is a really nice target for your bishop. So I think that black is now going to think about playing e5 and going to just completely jettison the idea of pawn to d4. But you might as well put your rook behind it. I don't see white being able to stop the pawn from coming to e5 anytime soon. Anyway, it is white's move first, and white plays bishop to f4, finally activating the bishop. But now, of course, e5 will come with tempo whenever it does happen. Maybe after rook over, white's idea is to put the bishop on e5, but of course we could just play f6 and then e5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we're seeing bishop to c1. I also wondered whether white's idea is to go knight to d4 at the right time and try to post up a piece on d6. But we're seeing white just offering Yaz to repeat the moves. We actually haven't seen a draw at all, Mike.
Yeah.
I mean, how many?
Yeah, 15
We've
games.
seen how many games of chess we've...
I don't know.
Yeah.
You might think it's in the player contract that draws are not allowed before move 40. Not at all. Okay. There's no rule like that in this game. I bet they're just trying to get as big a score as possible. But yeah, I think I've seen it before, but I can't immediately recall. It's incredibly rare, even in a title Tuesday, to see no draws in 15 top level games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And your plan is there in operation. The bishop posting up to e5, and No, white is threatening to clamp down. I gotta say one thing about white's position is if you do manage to get your knight to d4, and if you do manage to kind of provoke black into trading knights, and then maybe b5 will come, and then suddenly white is the one who potentially has some play there on the queen side. But Yaz saying, nope, no knight d4 for you. I'm setting up some kind of hidden pins against the white queen on f3. So
Right.
the question is how to improve.
Yep, you hit the nail on the spot there with rook to a3. The knight wasn't able to come to d4 because of that sideways pin. I really thought black was going to play f6, e5. If you do that too quickly, you actually weaken d5, and maybe white could play b5 and finally get something going. So again, not a lot of committal decisions here by Yagiz. He's going to play this a little bit more slowly. He hops his knight in. Now he's almost maximized all 4 of his pieces. The question is, can he break through? The knight does get to d4. Okay, and the knight on h4 actually is kind of sitting like a bystander, but rook takes with the idea takes and queen takes f2, and Sergey just goes into it. Isn't that just checkmate in 2?
Oh, and he just holds his head in his hands. He can't quite believe it. He really was thinking that that wasn't possible. Wow, what a dramatic finish. Yeah, there was going to be checkmate with the queen onto g2. And yeah, yes, he's in boss mode. He leans back and is like, yeah, that's exactly what he needed. Can't quite believe it either.
You can't quite tell he won the game, but he did. We have one game in progress. We're going to jump there super quickly. Patrick Schischlak against Henry Tudor, and black isn't just completely winning this event, but not this game. White is finally winning a game here. Patrick is going to try to convert this rook in pawn endgame where he doesn't have any extra pawns, but he's got the strongest pawn, and that pawn's about to become a queen. If both sides queen, can white take advantage of having the first move? Got to be careful where you put your king. Don't put it on c3 because pawn e1, queen is check. The king has to use the light squares to escape, and he does.
Yeah.
And
And
where's the
there he
move?
goes. And the person who checks first tends to have... Oh, that was a wrong check. I was thinking you could go queen to d5, and oh no, look at this. The rook can block. And after queen takes f6, then you block on with the queen e6 with a check. That was smart.
Yeah, unbelievable here. Now it's a drawn rook in pawn endgame. There was so many checks there. It was easy to go wrong. And okay, now we got Dvoretsky out. The pawn's going to come forward. The king's in front of the pawn, and apparently it's a win, although break out your table basis on this one. Okay, now the king's in front of the pawn. The black king is getting cut
primarily. Yeah, and this is the problem. The black king just cannot do the defensive work. I mean, if the king were on c8, then you could just give some checks to the white king, but as it stands, the king is not going to be a good defender here. Look at that, it's being driven even more back, and now you can't stop that pawn from promoting.
Yeah, we're going to see
just
something here called
some technique. This is Lucina position.
Yeah, exactly. And now the pawn just queens because the king, the black king gets in the way of possible checks. So not the best conversion, but then a great rook and pawn conversion. And Patrick was able to take down Henry, who technically lost on time in a losing position. Wow. Let's take a look at the standings. Yagiz is on a heater. 5 straight wins. Sina rebounds after 2 straight losses to get a win. And there we see Patrick is the closest to Sina, as Sergey, Henry, and Lou all have 2 points.
It's still everything to play for as we're going to be going into our final stretch. Not one draw we've seen, and that is something that is quite special. A lot of excitement, and I tell you what else is excitement. There is the chance for you at home to face the legend herself, Judith Polgar, the strongest woman in history and one of the most influential players the game has ever seen, in her match against the world. We're now deep in the middle game, and Polgar is on the attack. Can you help the world defend? Join the battle with tens of thousands of players against one of chess's all-time greats and use command !play Judith in the chat. And if you want to learn more about the legend herself, check out her brand new documentary, Queen of Chess, which is now streaming on Netflix. And on that note, we are going to go on for a short break. And when we return, we are going to see the final stretch of Group A in the ChessKid Youth Championships.
Every child will win like this.
There was a opening play like this, e4, e5.
I think first one should be this one. e4, e5, bishop c4. I think we call this bishop opening because next move is queen h5 and to checkmate. And as a beginner, I think a lot of kids will play bishop c5, try to play like white. And here we go queen h5, and some people will think that we're gonna eat this pawn and to protect, and we just take it. I think this is a kind of like a opening trap.
And did you ever win a game as a child using this?
Of course, because I think every child will win like this. Yeah, because it's easy, and nowadays if you like teach some like a beginner, and they will also do it.
When I set the bullet record on Chess.com, I didn't really pay attention to it being like a record or anything. I was mainly just trying to have fun, and it kind of came as a surprise. So it was kind of like killing two birds with one stone. I play this time control a lot, actually. It's one of my favorite time controls. It's a mix of, I guess, brain processing speed, like reaction time, and mouse speed. Doesn't really have much to do with like calculation or anything. Not much big chess related stuff, but in general, like some basic tactics and tricks are crucial and vital in these short time controls. So yeah, I guess I can't really describe what's happening in my brain, but there's definitely a lot of things and thought processes going through. If I played Magnus 100 times in the 10-second time control, I feel like it could be like, okay, I feel like he would be really good at like the chess pulse. So I could lose a few games to that aspect. In general, I would probably estimate maybe 85 to 15. And my favorite, I'm not sure exactly, but probably something around that. I feel like I could lose a couple games on the board, so. Probably Tata Steel Challengers. It was probably one of the biggest wins of my career. I guess I haven't really won many strong tournaments, and also that was an international one. So, and of course, getting to qualify for the Masters next year. Kind of everything piling up. I mean, I did get quite a bit lucky at some places, but in general, that was probably my biggest accomplishment and win over the past year. Next year at Tata Steel, I'm really excited and eager to play against pretty much everyone. I mean, in specific, maybe players like Gukesh, Vincent Keimer, and Ishigiri. I feel like there's a very interesting mixed field of players, so I'm really excited to play against anyone in general.
Your brain is a supercomputer capable of millions and millions of complex calculations and decisions. But your brain needs exercise, practice to keep it sharp and incisive. Chess puzzles are a great way to work out your brain, building pattern recognition, critical thinking, and memory. Doing puzzles every day makes your mind fit, helping you build creativity, problem solving, and memory skills. Puzzles on Chess.com featuring hundreds of thousands of original, beautiful problems tailored to your level. Whether you've never played before or you're a veteran, whatever level you're at, Chess.com's coach will help explain both the puzzle and the solution so you learn as you go. Most importantly, Chess.com puzzles are fun. Find interesting, beautiful solutions while building streaks, leveling up, and competing with friends. Try puzzles today on Chess.com and give your brain the exercise it's craving.
We are back, and would you believe it? It's already time for the final portion of Group A. Mike, it feels like we're just blazing through the games. I mean, the youngsters, sure enough, they're keeping us entertained.
Yeah, you know what we haven't seen is some sort of king and rook versus king and rook 75 move game where we can kind of enter chill mode. We've seen lots of mates. We've seen no draws after 18 games. We've seen black win 12 out of 18. We've seen some long streaks. We saw Sina win 3, then lose 2, then win. Yagiz lost his opening game fantastically, but then more fantastically, won 5 in a row. And there we see Patrick Cieslak is the closest. Now, the nice thing is everybody's going to play everybody one more time except for that round 6. So most players are still in control of their own destiny, except those players with 2, I'm going to say they need to win all 3 and they might need some help. So a lot of players are in sort of a critical situation right now with, well, there's 4 games left. I apologize. So I think most players are still within the control of their own destiny because 6 points is a very good chance of at least entering a tiebreak.
Yes, and well, a tiebreak would be a whole lot of fun, but we'll see if we even get there, because at the minute we're seeing Sina, Movahed and Yaz Khan. They are 2 grandmasters. They also are 2 favorites. They are leading the competition, and remember, those 2 spots are the golden ones. They will get you through to tomorrow's Sunday knockout.
Yeah, chance for $3,000. Everybody that plays gets at least $200 today. And here we are. Round 7 is underway. As per rule, I guess with Yagiz hosting, we knew there'd be a Caro-Kann every round. I think there has been a Caro-Kann every round. Maybe somebody from our stats team can let us know. How is the Caro doing? I'm going to guess pretty well, since Black has won 66% of the overall games today. But Yagiz, jump us into the action here in round 7.
Yes, I'm very happy that they're in the middle between Movahed and Sklokin. It is a Caro-Kann. And just to let you all know that Cieslak, he's also, his handle is Caro-Kann lover. So he also a big fan of the opening, although we're not seeing a Caro-Kann board there on his screen as he plays black against Liu Miaoyi. And Edomush, he obviously Henry Tudor just opened up with d4, so no Caro-Kann possible, but we are seeing what looks like it's a Queen's Gambit declined of some kind of sorts, with a knight jumping in early to e4. I'm going to leave the floor open to you, Mike, to choose which one of these games to follow.
I'm going to defer back to you because tomorrow is International Women's Day. We're going to get a jump start. So Yagiz, International Women's Day, my gift to you is you get to choose. Why don't we pick the lady, Liu Miaoyi, because she does have a very imbalanced position, but only if you agree.
Yeah, let's go right there, because I couldn't quite make up my mind. All of the games looked very, very interesting. So let's head there to Liu Miaoyi against Patrick Cieslak. Both players there on 2 points. So as you mentioned, that if they want to qualify to tomorrow's knockout, then they need to start motoring. They need to start stringing some victories together. And here we have a lot of tension in the center, but there is pressure against this knight on b5.
Yeah,
so
We've got a little bit of time. Let's take a look at the opening. And the reason I say that is because I used to play this a lot as a kid. This was kind of like a Scotch gambit type game. So one of our few double king pawns there, we're going to go back to the beginning. After e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, we had a 2 knights defense. She plays d4. So now we've sort of transposed to a Scotch gambit type system. But she plays e5 right away. Now, castles, I think, is a little bit maybe not more common, but it was more common when I was a kid. And now the knight goes back instead of jumping to e4. So now we're already in a little bit of a land I don't know. The idea of this move is so that this knight's not pinned and white cannot answer with knight takes. So white has to eventually give up the bishop pair to be able to win the pawn back. And the knight, look at this. This is almost like a retrograde chess puzzle. Raymond Smilyan's question is, how did the knight get to b8? And the answer is, it was actually the king's knight that became a queen's knight. No one saw that coming. And now let's get to our live position where the pawns are very imbalanced. A double exclam move. Why is that move so smart? Yagiz, you have any idea why? Is it just winning a pawn?
Well, okay. Well, you're setting up a trap of c takes b5. You're going to go d6, and you are unleashing an attack against the bishop on e7 and the rook on a8. So it's a brilliant move because, of course, you are sacrificing a piece, even though in practice you're really not.
Let's have some fun. What if, okay, let's go back one move. Actually, the players are going so fast. I was wondering if the pawn took on d5, if you could play knight takes and give the b5 knight. So there was multiple traps there, many of them based on the queen lined up with the rook. We will just leave it at that. Now, pawn to d6 retraps the bishop, but black has actually survived. Black gives the piece back. Black has the queenside pawn majority. Black has better development. This pawn is a bit of a target. So really nice to get out of the opening here with at least an equal position. Black is maybe even easier to play.
Yes, and the question for white is the pawn on e5 going to be a strength or a weakness? You know, rook e1, you're just asking black, are you going to take on e5? Maybe that's possible, but you are setting yourself up in a pin, and things get very, very complicated there.
Yeah,
I
something
don't know
like
what's
this.
happening.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
like
wouldn't
queen
take that
coming
pawn.
to d5. Yeah, I wouldn't take that pawn either. It's a little bit too hot to handle. So I suspect that black will perhaps play some safety first move, queen e6, and then the rooks. Oh, he takes it. Like, these juniors, they are brave.
Yeah, the idea here is if you play f4, then knight f3 check might come. Instead, the bishop comes to f4. This might be a situation where the bishop takes and your pawn takes, and white tries to win that pawn back in 5-10 moves or so. But you can keep the pin for now. White's just going to double rooks and keep the knight exactly where it is in a rather helpless position. So I feel like white is going to win the pawn back and get back to equality, but no more. That's my guess.
Right. I actually really liked your plan of going bishop takes knight and then throwing in queen b3 check. And then that way you could win back the pawn and then at least ruin black's pawn structure somewhat. But Liu Miaoyi, she's from the Chinese school of chess, which is very much they don't care about material. Instead, activity is everything. So her plan is to simply double up on the E line and then just argue that the pawn on c5 is going to be weak. And eventually, black is going to have to give ground.
Yep, and you know what? My idea of her getting back to equality by just taking on e5 and winning the e5 pawn back later on, I don't think a draw is good enough. I think she needs to think about winning the rest of her games. Patrick is in a situation where he could probably afford maybe one draw. I mean, getting to 6.5 would be a great score, but he can't give away that many points either. Both of these players are actually getting a little bit desperate to catch Sina and Yagiz at the top of the standing. So she finds an outpost for her queen. The knight finally finds safety, but black never got an isolated pawn on the e-file. So you're right. The Wang Yue / Liu Miaoyi school of chess, going for activity, not just trying to get the pawn back, but she just, of course, runs the danger of just being down a pawn in the endgame.
And as you mentioned, you can't capture the pawn on c5 because there was a back rank mate there on e1. And on the camera, it looks like both players are very, very comfortable. Liu Miaoyi looks very untroubled. h4. Note she doesn't go h3, h4, perhaps setting up ideas of going h5, h6. Oh, that pawn is going to come a marching. And this bishop on g3 at the minute is not entirely working, but it can relocate itself to f2. So I was thinking of ideas such as f3, bishop f2. There's also h6 ideas when white wants them. So white does have enough activity to offset this material imbalance. And maybe white has to actually settle for repeating moves here because otherwise it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, she might have just enough activity to have equality, but nothing more. Quick twirl of the hair there for Patrick. And he's wondering, is Liu Miaoyi gonna? No, Liu Miaoyi avoids the draw, maybe based on tournament standings. And now black has a draw if black wants it. But knight to g4 forces the king into a terrible spot. I think he's going to eventually play it. No, he just brings the queen back to d5, centralizing the queen.
Yeah, and just to give you a big update, the other two games have finished with Movahed winning with the white pieces and Henry Tudor defeating Yaz Khan Edomush. So things are livening up as we enter the final stretch.
Black can trade queens and does so. Now white can get an outside pass pawn. Is the pawn catchable? I guess if white does that, then black's c pawn would also be uncatchable. Those are technical terms. And so black does have, let's see, one extra pawn, two extra pawns in the endgame. White gets the outside pass pawn, but black has multiple pawns. Fascinating. Computer says it should be winning for black.
Yes, and that's primarily because the two pawns in the middle, they are untouchable. The white king can't hunt one pawn without letting the other pawn continue on to queen, and the black king can catch the a pawn in the meantime. And we're seeing there Another decisive result. So take a look at this, Mike. Sina Movahed winning against Sergei Sklokin, and Henry Edward Tudor defeating Yaz Edamush, which means that we now have a two-way tie at the top with Edamush and Movahed both on 5 points, and Patrick there on 4 points, and Henry Edward Tudor there on 3.
So much happened in that round. That was the moving day round. Yuj got brought back to the field virtue of another upset. Only the second round where white has scored better than black. And now it's officially a 3-person race. Yuj has not locked up his position tomorrow just yet. Here we are in round number 8. Patrick trying to desperately claw his way back up into one of the top 2 spots. And Yovi, take a look at the games and tell us which one you want to jump into if you would.
Yes, and I can see there's excitement aplenty in Sklokin Tudor as we're seeing G4 and an open Sicilian. I'm also drawn to the game in the middle between Sislak and Movahed, as Movahed does have to deal with that's a positional weakness on D5. We're seeing a trade in the middle, but I have to go to Yaz's game against Liu Miaoyi because he just lost his game. Can he strike back immediately? Last time he lost, he went on a massive tear, winning 5 games in a row. I mean, will we see more of the same?
Well, I think there's so much importance in the standings of that Patrick versus Sina game. I'd love to jump there and see exactly. As you mentioned, Sina's been a very streaky player, but actually everybody's been very streaky when you think about the fact that there's been no draws at all in 21 games, no draws. That'd be like playing blackjack and not having a push or something. It'd be very, very statistically unlikely. And here we have a very typical open Sicilian position. We got the typical backward pawn, the typical opposite sides castle, the typical black having to face these pawns being thrown at him. And the only thing not typical is that we have teenagers with 3,000 ratings playing the game.
I think we got to get used to that, Mike. And we're talking about our youngest player here is just 12 years old. And we're in this game, we are seeing some direct chess. This is really the brand of the youngsters these days. They just push as hard as possible. And H6 making an appearance. And funnily enough, once the pawn gets there, it's not just a signal for attacking. It's also a signal that you might want to go into an endgame where that pawn on H6 is actually just ruining black's chances in an endgame. But forget all that, because we are seeing that this is immediate, going for the jugular right now, because there's an open H line, opposite side castling, and it looks good for white to my eyes. It looks very scary for black. You know, if white could somehow get that queen over to H6, you know, it would be game over in a shot.
Yeah, nothing can guard H7 at all. The light squared bishop is on the complete wrong side of the board. The only saving grace is this one knight. This one knight is stopping the entire attack because white simply cannot double on the H file. And if he could, it would just be winning. As you just said, Yovi, there's no guarding the H7 pawn. Now, black is using the Oreo defense. He's got the 2 black pawns on the outside and the white pawn in the middle. He's going to keep the cream there. He's not going to eat it just yet because that white pawn is actually helping guard the king. So he strikes back in the center. He's going to rip open the center. And this rook, remember, is tied down to D2 because it's the only piece guarding checkmate. A fantastic counterattack idea here by Sina.
Yes. And now white is on only move territory. You have to defend C2 because rook takes rook is a coming. So that's why the arrow is telling us that rook D1 is the only move. There really isn't too many other alternatives that you might want to be playing, because otherwise everything is just going to spring into action for black. Rook takes rook is coming. Bishop takes rook in the air.
Goes for a checkmate, but the knight just hops back to G6. And now rook takes rook, threatens everything. It threatens the triple attack on C2. It threatens the queen. It threatens the rook. It threatens every single thing that's near and dear to Patrick's heart. Now, how do you survive for white? You actually made your problems worse by putting your queen on the same line as the bishop, even though maybe you thought you were guarding, maybe you thought you were doing a bunch of good things, but you were actually hurting your position amazingly enough.
Yeah, it's just, you have to drop. I think you're going to be dropping 2 rooks with that move. Rook takes rook. I mean, it was just a blind spot there from white. It was a very, very sharp position. And with 24 seconds left on the clock, I can understand why it's so easy to panic and just lose control of the situation.
Things are looking great for Sina. I see no defense here. Rook takes rook is the threat. If you play rook takes rook first, black can play bishop takes back, and your queen is trying to guard the mate, trying to guard the rook on h1 and everything. So he tries bishop to d3. Now the computer says the black is winning, so there's got to be a breakthrough here. And maybe you just move your rook, just some calm rook move to reinvigorate the attack on the long diagonal. And in fact, yes, the rook just drops back to d6, and white is going to lose some amount of material here.
Yes. Maybe this is all part of the plan. Maybe his idea was to go queen e1, bishop takes rook, and then
You can
once
always
you
take, yeah.
recapture... And that one, unfortunately, is a spoiler because you can't take it. And now here you're simply a rook down. There's no saving this one.
Yeah, it wasn't just an exchange. It was a full rook. The counterattack on the C file was better than the attack on the H file. A great lesson there if you're going to play either side of the Sicilian. You often can't defend your side of the board. You have to attack more quickly on your opponent's king's side of the board. That's exactly what black did. A model game. White trying to fight back here. But if Sina is able to win, this will do a lot to decide who advances tomorrow. A queen sacrifice. Oh, fancy chess to win the game. Now black is up a rook and a knight. I love that idea.
Yeah, beautiful idea. In fact, I thought it was a blunder until I saw the H-pawn had been making its way quietly to the promotion. And that means there's 2 games still remaining. The clock is ticking down. Henry Edward Tudor looks like he is doing the business against Glockin. Maybe we check it in on Yaz, whether he can...
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, let's take a look at the action here. Both players have about 11 seconds left. It's roughly equal. The bishop on e3 is not exactly a sparkling piece, though, for Yagiz. Okay, the knight comes back. The knight's going to work its way around to the weak f-pawn, and here we pick up the live action, an a3, forcing the bishop back. Maybe the white bishop can come back to d2. In fact, it does as soon as I say it. The a-pawn is targeted, and man, now they're down to 8 seconds left.
And white's pawn structure, you can't beat around the bush. It is rather ugly, but they do say that bad bishops make good defenders, and that bishop on e3 is certainly holding the squares and the pawns. And now Yaz perhaps maybe trying to get a little bit of counterplay as he goes for the b pawn. He just ignores the f pawn, just rejecting a draw offer by repetition. And now the rook gets behind the pawn. Look how Yaz has sped up. Just 2 seconds left on the clock, and he's playing ever so quickly. And now the white king is going to come in.
Yeah, black's, of course, going to try to stop the king from invading and try to win the b-pawn. That b-pawn's going to be a great decoy, though. If you go try to win it, you're going to lose all of your kingside pawns. So black is now forced into this terrible defense. The rook comes up because you had to avoid the mate. And now rook c7 looks like a winning idea. And yes, simplification. A man after my own heart. This is all I teach on ChessKid land. Yagiz simplifies to a very easily winning king and pawn endgame. And that might be the end of Lu Miaoyi's chances to advance tomorrow. Yagiz keeps pace with Sina. Both are on 6. And wow, that round really more than other did a lot to shape up who we might see tomorrow. So now we have 2 players on 6 points. Black gets back to the winning ways. Black has won 15 out of 24 games. And once again, 0 draws. I need my stress pawn for this action. Got 2 rounds left, and Patrick and Henry both need to win. Either of them, I should say, need to go 2 out of 2 to have any chance. This actually could be a round where the tickets are punched to tomorrow. If Yagiz and Sina both get a half point, then they will both advance till tomorrow.
Yes, and for the other 2 on 4 points, they are basically in must-win scenarios. So we have a battle between the leaders, Movahed and Adamush. Should they just halve it out, Mike?
Well, that's one way to think about it. I don't know that they're doing a deep dive in the standings to understand that a half point punches both of their tickets to tomorrow. We do know this. At least one player from that game on the left side of your screen will advance to tomorrow, regardless of result. And if it's a draw, again, we haven't had any draws today, but then both players would advance till tomorrow. So Henry, Lou, Patrick, and Sergey, they're all hoping for a decisive result amongst the leaders. So at least they have a puncher's chance of making a comeback. But we've got some crazy things happening in the Lu Miaoyi versus Henry Tudor game. What is going on with Black's development in that middle game?
Yeah, I mean, I was also looking at that game in complete wonder. I mean, Black's development is, shall we say, negligent, but it's threatening to unravel. You know, you can go knight to e6. There's a bishop coming to e6, and I suspect the king is going to have to live a charmed life there on e8. I don't think White will be allowing it to castle anytime soon. There's a lot of counterplay for that extra pawn. Shall we dive into that game? Because the game between Movahed and Adomush, that one looks like it's going to be a slow burner.
Yeah, we've got ourselves like a close type Sicilian. So let's go to the open chess games. That's where the fun is. Let's go to the middle of our screen. We've got Lou versus Henry. White has sacrificed a piece. White has sacrificed a pawn, which is a type of a piece, depending on your usage of the word piece. And White is hoping to attack quickly before Black can catch up in development. But Black is starting to stabilize despite that lack of development problem that we noticed before.
Mm-hmm. And a very interesting decision here because the rook came to e1. And I was going to say the question was, could Black have just gone bishop takes bishop and just sacrificed the queen in order to get all of these pieces as compensation? We'll never know whether that was actually possible, as now queen to d7 and now knight to d2. And as the blue arrow is indicating it, everything is looking fantastic for White. The pieces are ready to jump into the game.
Okay, well, it looked like Black's idea, if we go back just one move here, Black's idea was to move the rook over to d8 to try to get rid of these really strong bishops that are preventing you from castling and attacking the bishop on e6 as well. Apparently, the knight was supposed to come to d2, maybe because the knight is stronger on e4, but the knight went to the a3 square. Computer hates this move, and after knight to a3, we had castles queenside. Don't forget the rule. I think it was Kirchnoy who forgot, or maybe it was Karpov, that the square b8, you can still castle despite b8 being attacked. So surprisingly, it's almost like a freestyle chess game where you forget that castling can sometimes solve all your problems. I'm not sure all of Black's problems are solved because we have an open c file, but Black has at least got the king off of that very weak e file.
Yes, yeah, I think the king will be feeling very relieved at least to have some cover. And as you mentioned there, you know, it does feel really random. I do like this knight c4. I do feel that Black isn't really out of the woods just yet because you have ideas of rook c1, b4, b5, and Black is going to have to play very carefully in order to survive this. I think the first point of call is to try to exchange off that bishop on d6, which is really being a nuisance.
Let me ask you a question. The computer says knight c4 best move. Knight c4, what if Black plays b5 in response? I know it's super weakening, but how does White save all the pieces? Can White play knight and rook c1?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Knight to c4 played. Knight e5 is in the air. Rook c1 as well, as that's going to be an idea to back up. I mean, you have to do something like b5 because otherwise this whole plan of going rook c1 is going to be so unpleasant. So b5, go all in. And then what about knight e5? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, knight e5, and the knight is so strong. If you take it, though, then the bishop takes, and White at least saves the piece, still can attack on the open c file. But what if you take the bishop? So b5, okay, I'm going to overwrite the blue arrow with an orange arrow. I have that power. Knight to e5, you take the bishop. I don't think knight f7 is a problem. I guess rook on a to c1 is the problem. Okay, we're about to see it. All the stuff that we've been looking at is about to happen. Knight e5, and now queen takes bishop. Oh, you can probably just play knight takes knight straight away. Because if the queen takes back, then there's a rook c1 trick. So again, queen takes, yes. Knight takes would have been the proper move order.
Yeah. Okay, well, we didn't see that. The players instead choosing something else. Well, this one's very interesting as well, because the argument is the king can live a happy life on b7, and then the rook can slide up to f5. And once you start pushing White back, then sorry, the central pawns are going to be so good.
And Henry has got that sort of 1980s MTV music video color scheme. He looks like he's a music video from the band Aha. He's got those yellow and red and blue colors there, at least on my screen. So he's not, though. He's playing a chess game. He's not a 1980s music video. We might actually want to just report that Yagiz will play more chess on Sunday. He will try to avenge his finals loss because he has won his game. Guess what? As Black against Sina Movahed, he moves to 7 points and he is guaranteed a spot in the knockout portion tomorrow. Sina is still looking really good with 6, but we're going to stay here because Henry needs to go 2 out of 2 and needs Sina to lose in the final round to have a chance at a tiebreak. So it's all or nothing here for Henry as black.
Yes, and Mike, just to update you, Mike, that unfortunately the disconnection gambit struck, and Sina Movahed disconnected, couldn't quite reconnect back in time, and we'll see whether he can come back and reconnect in time. Otherwise, oh goodness, it's horrible when the technical gremlins strike. But as we're seeing on our cameras, we're seeing that Henry is the one that is taken over control. We said it, as soon as the momentum had changed for white, Rookie won. And okay, well, this is also good enough. You're going to pick up B2 and A2, and those 2 pawns on the queen side, they're going to be the ones promoting.
Okay, guards with
it's a
the
race.
king.
Now
Yeah,
comes
one of
a
black's
pawn.
advantages is that black is going to promote with check. So you can already think of black as being sort of up in a tempo. Black's going to put the rook on B5, and notice the B4 pawn is too fast for the white king. The white king is outside the square of the pawn. Black guards everything, and this pawn on B3, I think it's already unstoppable. And there we go. Henry takes care of business against Lou, and with the disconnection, we're going to really hope Sina gets online quickly. Do we have any games remaining in this round? We do. We're going to jump to Patrick versus Sergey. And there we go. Computer says it's equal, but with both sides having 3 seconds left, it is a battle of nerves. Both players are completely locked into their board. This A pawn looks a little scary, but if white can blockade it, white's got a lot of center pawns.
Yeah, and it's knights, the crafty piece is very difficult to handle when you've got no time on the clock. And the A pawn is coming marching. Oh, you couldn't take on A4 because the rook takes knight, and there was a fork on D2. And in fact, the white king is in a mating net.
White can't move. White is in complete Zugzwang. No king moves, no pawn moves, and no rook moves or knight moves because the mate on F2. That was an unbelievable Zugzwang by Sergei Sklokin, almost right out of a textbook. I loved that position. And we always have this problem of the rook coming to D2 and then to F2 mate. In fact, I think that black missed an opportunity to play it. Oh, there could be stalemate defenses. If he'd played rook D2, we would have had the crazy rook situation where white would have just tried to give away the rook. And Sergei spotted that. This is a fascinating endgame. I'll make a little note. ChessKid video coming up on this game. So many endgame ideas in play.
Yes, and well spotted there from 12-year-old Sergey. And now he's going for another one. I guess what he can do is just start to improve the king. And if he wants to be lazy about it, I was going to say sacrifice, but didn't even need to do that. He just drove the white rook away from the defense of the e-pawn. And now he's got a new target in hand. It's the f-pawn that is going to be falling. And the black king can just simply find shelter on h6. And another pawn drops. And that's it. It's going to be all over for white.
Yeah, there's so many pawns coming down the chessboard. And, Sergey is not going to be able to play chess tomorrow with having 2 points, but he's going to be able to hold his head high. He's going to get his 3rd point here. Remember, he beat the #1 ELO-rated kid in the opening round. He spotted the stalemates here and is winning a fantastic endgame. And he's only 12 years old, which means he's actually eligible to play in this exact same event for like 3 more years. So we have not seen the end of Sergey. And in fact, I'm sorry, apparently he has 3 points. Patrick has 4, but I think that does mathematically eliminate Patrick. However, we can see with the standings there, black wins 3 again. That's 18 out of 27 for black. We have no draws, and it all comes down to whether or not Sina can score at least a draw. If he loses and Henry wins, we will have a tiebreak just like we had in the under 13 division. And guess what? Yovi, I just looked into it. Henry is playing Sina. Henry controls his own destiny going into the last round. Now, unfortunately for him, he's playing white, which is a disadvantage today. That's the only thing going against Henry. But you know what? Yovi, let's take a look at that possible stalemate from the previous round, because I think that was so instructive to be able to spot that at just the right moment. Now, I've got to go really, really far back in the game because they played, I think, more than 100 moves. But I first actually want to look. I'm going to go back to that unbelievable Zugzwang position because it's just so pretty. I mean, look at this. White has 1 pawn left, okay? That pawn becomes a queen and gets captured. Nothing can move for white. No pawns can legally move. The king cannot legally move. If you remove your knight, that might as well be illegal because of what we call in ChessKid the hook mate. And the rook, amazingly, has no toggle moves because both c3 and b2 are covered by black pieces. Literally a stalemate. Now, white took. And after white took, of course, that drops the knight. Now, you might wonder, in a position like this one, why would the rook just not go back to d2? Rook to d2, unstoppable checkmate, right? Well, no, then we have the crazy rook situation. The rook gives a check, and then white will just keep on offering this rook until it gets captured. Now, is there some sort of Troitsky-esque king walk where you walk your king around the world? Maybe. But why on earth would you want to go into that in a blitz game? So black correctly avoided this line, and I just love that Sergey spotted all of that at just the right moments that he needed to.
And with no time on the clock, Mike, I mean, he noticed the patterns almost immediately. And he was like, no, I'm not going to go in for that. And instead, he maneuvered his knight back and he let the rook and knight do the heavy lifting in order to just pick off the white pawns. But beautiful, beautiful endgame there from the 12-year-old. And what I also liked in the standings was that we saw 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Yeah,
not often we see beautiful mathematical patterns like that.
That is absolutely true. So many weird statistical coincidences. You noticed the 7-6, and by the way, we said 7-6, not the other way around. We're not doing this anymore, okay? That's out the window, okay? 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. And then we're going to skip to 0, the 0 being draws. No draws. And black has won 18 out of 27. Now, a lot of these kids cited math as their favorite subject, and I don't need one of the kids to tell me that is exactly 66% win percentage for black. Unbelievable. And black has only lost 2 of the 9 rounds. Excuse me. Yeah, that's right. White has only won 2 of the 9 rounds. So pretty unbelievable stuff there. And I have some good news. I'm being told by my reporter on the ground. Yes, we've got reporters everywhere, okay? This is a high-budget operation. That Sina has reconnected, which is, of course, what we want to see, because Henry versus Sina will decide everything. It is win or go home for Henry. And I'm actually kind of glad we had that short little pause, because it allowed Henry to take a look at the standings and understand the situation. I think a lot of players are going to do that anyway, but now he knows the stage. And you know what? Yovi, we're only going to look at that game. Only that game matters, okay? So yeah. Henry versus Sina, Romania versus Iran in this final round. It's going to be a fun one. I love win or go home situations.
Definitely. And just to stress once more that Yaz, we're going to be seeing a lot more for him as he has already punched his ticket through to tomorrow's Sunday knockout. But on our screens, the big question, Sina Movahed. Will he be able to hold his nerve as he plays a 14-year-old Henry Edward Tudor from Romania? And will the technology be in his favor as he struggles with a disconnect? But this is our first disconnect, and usually it's this thing, right? On Title Tuesday, players, unfortunately, they disconnect. There's technical gremlins, I like to call them, in the air. It's never in your favor.
Speaking of technology, we don't have the interview lined up, so we're not going to show it to you. But Henry gave an interview a couple of years ago. He learned chess on ChessKid through my videos. So we are now, ChessKid is old enough to where a lot of the kids that are playing literally learned on ChessKid, including Fausti Oro during the pandemic. Yes, it was during the pandemic that Fausti learned how to play chess. Wasn't that just yesterday? He learned on ChessKid as well. So I'm sorry, Yovi, I've actually helped raise this field of gremlins that are taking rating points from players like me and you. Well, not me, I'm retired. But I'll just say, this is what I get for building up ChessKid. But we're super happy that the players have learned on ChessKid, and now we have an opening. We saw so much in the under 13. Henry is playing the exact opening that Bodana and many others played, which is this double fianchetto opening. And here we go, Henry versus Sina. It's win or go home for Henry.
It is, and he's gone for this double fianchetto. It kind of started with knight f3, b3. I mean, the plan is just simply, especially when he puts the queen on e1, is to go for e2, e4, and then you just start to advance. Queen e2, the rook will come to d1, and then there will be pressure against the center at some point. White always has in their back of the pocket ideas such as e5, but you've got to be very careful because once you go e5, the bishop on h7 is no longer shut out of the game.
Yeah, it's almost like a London bishop, isn't it? Except in reverse, okay? I know this because often I play the King's Indian versus a London. As you pointed out, this bishop gains so much life when white pushes. So instead, white goes for a different setup, putting the knight on e5 and expanding. And now white might be trying for this move pawn to f5, which weakens the black king side. It advances the rook, but knight back, getting rid of one of white's best placed pieces. And now I already want to take on f7 and play f5. It's probably not sound, but again, it is win or go home. It's a little bit too early there to go crazy. You could just play queen h5 or something if you wanted to.
Yeah, you can go queen h5. You could also maybe introduce new pieces into the attack. I'm thinking the rook on a1 perhaps could get into the game with rook d1 or rook e1, just anticipating that the tension in the center might get resolved with pawn takes e4. But instead, we're seeing Sina. He's going on the offensive with b5, saying, let's make this a pure race. You work in the center and the king side. I'm going to work the magic on the queen side.
Queen g4 is like a juicy move. In fact, I don't know if white is happy with the position objectively, but in a win or go home situation, white is getting what he wants. There is play on both sides of the board. I mean, if you said it was win or go home and you showed me this bishop, I would say, cool, I can win with that bishop, right? Queen to g4, he's not expecting the checkmate to work, but he's expecting black to make a weakness. Bishop f8 is the computer's recommendation. That, of course, prevents any pawn structure weaknesses. I assume we're going to see this move. I don't really see any other move that black would consider. Maybe d4 is a very small consideration to block out the bishop. In fact, it was played, but that pawn looks a little bit weak after knight f3. That's why I had discounted this move. And computer says knight f3. How do you guard the pawn? Bishop f6 is answered by pawn to e5.
Yeah, how do you guard the pawn? I don't see a natural continuation. Maybe you just ignore it and go a4. Just put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, and just rely on the power of the a pawn. But it's not going to be easy. I mean, maybe you have to go on the counteroffensive and go for f5, but that really might be just setting fire to the position unnecessarily. And the stress is there, Mike, because as you mentioned, I can't see a way to defend d4 at all.
Actually, before this game got going, I took a quick peek at Sina's camera, and he looked like he was sighing and trying to calm himself down. I'm sure that disconnection gave him a lot of stress, but this was a pretty easy thing to see that after d4, that pawn was going to go down. So I'm surprised that Sina didn't already have a response ready. He does go for a4. He's got to create some sort of counterplay. Yeah, I think that the disconnection happened at a very inopportune time. I'm so glad he came back, but he might still be feeling the adrenaline. I mean, I know it. Right? Ryobi, you're a commentator. I'm a commentator. When I have a tech problem and I'm doing a live show, I know what goes on inside my body. And Sina might have been experiencing the same thing. The computer didn't like winning the pawn back right away, but sure seems natural to me to have done so. Okay, black's going to try to throw this pawn down the board. Bishop f8, because any knight move would have been a discovered attack on g7. So safety first, guard g7 even before you need to. And objectively equal, but again, I think white is getting the kind of position that you want to get when you are in a must-win situation.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sina's doing incredibly well to hold his nerve, because I can tell you when I've had those technical glitches, I have been massively stressed. And here, he has had a problem in that he's dropped the pawn on d4. That probably wasn't part of the equation, but he does have counterplay based on this runaway a pawn. And yeah, this is something that we mentioned earlier on. You've got to always be careful about going e5 as white, because it unleashes this bishop on h7. And sure enough, the bishop is attacking the rook on a8. But actually, I'm not sure whether you even want to give up your bishop for a rook like that. And that's where we're seeing that there is going to be a sacrifice. In fact, it's happened. And watch out for this bishop on h7. It's soon to become a monster.
Yeah, white made a very committal decision. When you play e5, you hurt this bishop, but you help the other one, a true Sophie's choice. But it turns out the bishop sacrifice, the exchange sacrifice for the bishop was completely justified because of all of these weaknesses. Look at the black pawn pieces rush to life. Black no longer has to worry about any attack at all ever against his own king. What a brilliant decision here. Petrosian-esque exchange sacrifice. The black pieces are all coming to life. Still, though, it is a material imbalance, so white is getting at least a puncher's chance in this position, but things are looking very good for black.
Yes, and I was actually wondering whether d5 might be in the air for white just to kind of cling on and gain some control of the light squares, but instead we're seeing already that Henry is actually fighting hard because now black is only move, bishop takes bishop.
Yep, that's it. Black didn't really want to get rid of the bishop pair. They operate well in combination with each other. Instead, the queen moves over. Okay, it's not over yet, but only 8 seconds left. If they have a winner by Henry, by white, they will play a 2-game 3+1 tiebreak, but we're a long way away from that. White is getting some chances here by getting a passed d-pawn that if it gets captured, the rooks come to life. And now all 3 results are possible, but only one really matters for our event today.
Yes, it is only if Henry manages to win that we're going to be seeing tie breaks. All other results, that means Sina is the one going through. And what is happening here as the queens are going to come off? And the question is the B pawn. Can you just go bishop c2 and then go b3, b2? Well, we're going to be seeing something like that. This bishop parks itself on the golden square. b3 incoming.
Yep, the rook goes behind the pawn exactly where you want to be, whether you're the person with the passed pawn or fighting against the passed pawn. Now we reach a moment of stasis where the pawn wasn't going to be able to advance. So now white takes his chances in rook and 4 versus rook and 3. Remember, Magnus once won rook and 4 versus rook and 4. So a little bit of an easier task. The problem is, even if you trade down, you're going to have rook and 1 versus rook, and the black king is going to be in front of whatever passed pawn you've got remaining. So it's an objective draw, but white is going to play 150 moves trying to win this one.
Mm-hmm. And will this be the first draw of Group A? What's happening? Oh,
huge mistake, because he gave up control of the 7th rank, and now white is going to get a passed h pawn. That's going to be the decider. Can white convert, though? We might have some bonus chess. Don't go anywhere at all, kiddos.
Yeah, and what a turnaround. The black fortress was working so well, and now the black king is completely cut off. Okay, it's going to be driven off one more stage. Could you go rook to g8 as opposed to rook a8? Yeah, he gets here, and now the king will step forward, and then the g-pawn is going to be advancing. And you can cut the king off one more. It's...
he actually misplays it because he loses the pawn. Unbelievable. And actually loses on time. We went from a drawn rook endgame to a win, back to a draw, and ultimately the theme of the day prevails as black wins. Henry lost on time, but it ultimately didn't matter because it was an easily drawn position once his pawn falls. Heartbreak for Romania. Sina throws his head back and knows he has survived an unbelievable game, an unbelievable effort from Henry, trying to win and make a tiebreak happen. Black finishes with 20 out of 30. There are no draws, but the most important stat is right there at the top. Yagiz and Sina, not exactly wire-to-wire winners, but just about close. They will both play in the semifinals tomorrow. I actually don't know if these standings are in tiebreak order, but there will be a tiebreak, not an actual chess game, but a Sonnenberg-Berger tiebreak. Yagiz probably, we're listing based on Sonnenberg-Berger, will be the number 1 seed, and he will play the number 2 seed from the later action pool play. Yovi, what an incredible first pool play today.
Yeah, absolutely astounding stuff there. I mean, we could see the relief on Sina's face there when he managed to get that all-important result that netted him to tomorrow's playoffs. And for Yaz, we can see that he started the round with 7 points, so he lost, but that's irrelevant because he still gets through to tomorrow's playoffs. We knew that going into the round, and wow, what a day. I mean, this is just Act 1. Mike, we have got Act 2 to follow, with players such as Andy Woodward, Faustino Oro, and many more stars. I can't wait to see what it is going to be bringing. So, wow.
Yeah, this afternoon's chess will not be a letdown. The 2 GMs advanced, the 2 highest rated Chess.com Blitz rating players advanced, but it was not without a struggle. It all came down to the last game. Even Yagiz, I think, got nicked for more losses than he ever has before on a Saturday portion of the ChessKid Youth Championship. But coming up at 2 p.m. Eastern, we do have the defending champion, the Tata Challengers champion, the Chess.com Bullet all-time record holder, the former Chess.com Puzzles champion, Andy Woodward. We have him there as the number 3 seed, but I think he's number 1 to a lot of people. We've got Tani Adewume, bearer of a very recent Grandmaster Norman, a 2640 performance rating in St. Louis. We've got Fausti, who learned on ChessKid and then went on to beat all of us, yours truly very much included. He was 1 game away from being the youngest Grandmaster of all time. We've also got, by the way, the under 13 champion, Aaron Mendez from Canada. He got too old to defend his title, but he's going to play in the under 16. And then we've got a couple of giant killers at the bottom. Megan Paragua, who got to the finals of the under 13 last year. She always overperforms in this event. And we've got I am Ryo Chen from Texas, one of the best and most accomplished blitz players on Chess.com in the junior division. So yeah, it was a great opener, and we've got 3 more hours of fantastic chess coming up at 2 p.m.
Yeah, I know. And I was looking at that who's who. I mean, we've got some incredible names, as you pointed out, Andy Woodward, Faustino Oro, and some names that could really surprise us all. So we are going to go on a break, a very long break. Give yourself some time to have your dinner, your lunch, to catch up, because we are going to come back in just over an hour, I think. And then we're going to bring you everything that Faction B, Group B, is going to deliver, with Andy Woodward, Faustino Oro, all just rising to the challenge. Who is going to qualify to tomorrow's Sunday knockout? Well, if this is just an opener, we can't wait for what is going to be ahead. See you in a bit. Goodbye.